TinkerCAD tips. As always, welcome back. This is TinkerCAD 101, and this is going to be Lesson 6. Now, as I said before, if you've missed any of the prior lessons, you can always click on my bio and find those in my most recent listings, or you can go down to my TinkerCAD tips playlist and look through those. There's nearly 600 of them going back about 3 years. Plenty of great stuff to view out there, more advanced techniques and projects as well. So in today's tutorial, I wanted to go over the concept of solids and hole shapes, a little bit of grouping, and introduce you to a couple of more keyboard commands, as well as showing you one useful technique for splitting objects that you've created in TinkerCAD. So first thing you need to understand is that any object that you see in TinkerCAD can either be a solid or a hole. Now I know it can be a little misleading because up here in the basic shapes you have a hole box and a hole cylinder. Now what holes are used for instance, if I drag this out here, let's go ahead and resize this, we'll make it a little smaller. If I wanted to cut a hole into this half sphere here, I would bring out this hole shape. I would select the two of those, and I need to union group them together. I've gone over grouping a little bit in prior tutorials, and I'll touch on this some more. If I just made it a bundled group, it ties these two together without actually cutting in. Okay? What we actually want to do to cut that hole into that shape is to do this union grouping. Right? You can see now our shape has that hole in it that we created. If we want to undo that, we click on this, which is Control-Shift-G. By the way, Control-B is bundle group, and Control-G group is union grouping. Just understand the difference between bundle and union grouping. Union grouping will actually cut in, and before you export your model, all the elements will need to be union grouped before you can export. Otherwise, what you get in your STL will not necessarily be what you expected it to be. Okay? Now, what I want to point out here is that even though they have this hole box and hole cylinder here, it's really kind of unnecessary because anything can be a hole or a solid. I could take this pyramid over here, click on it, and just type the keyboard letter H. Now that's a hole shape. S would make it solid. The same for this hole cylinder that I brought out. I could just hit S. Now that's a solid. So anything can be a hole or a solid. So whenever you're designing in TinkerCAD, kind of consider that. If there's a certain way that you want to cut a hole or a hole shape, first design the shape as a solid, then turn it into a hole, and then group it, do your alignment, get it where you want, and then union group it with your other solids to cut those holes in. Now, any shape, even shapes that you've previously designed. For instance, I have this one here. This happens to be union grouped, although it's multicolor. If I got rid of the multicolor, you could see this was all in orange, basically the same thing, doesn't matter. If I select on it and click on hole up here, now it's a hole shape. Now it's a solid. I can do the same thing with the keyboard. H is hole, S is solid. Even shape generators. I have this example here. Okay, this is called a helix. It comes out initially as a solid, but I could turn that into a hole. I have this cone here. I could select the two of those. We'll do a quick alignment. There's our alignment. Click it this way, align at the bottom. Make sure they're both selected. D to drop to the work plane. Now notice here, while I have these selected, right up here in the upper right in the dialog, it shows me that I have two objects selected. Even though you can't see the helix inside, it is there as a hole shape. To cut that in, I'm going to click on either Control-G or Union Group here. We'll give it a moment to resolve. Whenever you see something with a red outline, TinkerCAD is thinking, and when it comes back as blue, then you know that it's done. Now at this point, we can't see what's inside of that. So here's a new keyboard command, the letter T for transparent. Even though this is a solid, I can click T and make it transparent. And look at that. It's kind of like an X-ray. I can now see what's inside of that shape. T again will make it untransparent, or I could even, in this case, turn this into a hole to kind of see what's inside of there. Change that back to a solid. Now let me show you one of the useful ways of using holes, and I get this question a lot, how to split something. So I'm going to take this shape here, I'm going to hit Control-D to duplicate, or I could have clicked the duplicate button up here. I'm going to drag this out, a copy of it. I'm going to Alt-Shift and then grab a corner here. I'm going to enlarge it a bit and hit the letter D. Now let's say I want to split this thing in half from front to back. There's kind of a slick way of doing that. We're going to grab a whole box over here. I'm going to bring it out onto the work plane. And then I'm going to use these resizing handles to get it to go about halfway. I'm going to move this in here. I'm going to make it a wee bit taller. All right. Got to make sure it's covered on all sides here. All right, going to use a couple more keyboard commands here. I am going to click the letter W for the work plane, and I'm going to put the work plane on this edge of that whole box. While that whole box is selected, I'm going to hit Control-D to duplicate, and then the letter D to drop it to the work plane. W to get the work plane tool, I'm going to put it back on the default. Okay, now what you see is I have those two hole boxes right up next to each other. I'm going to shift select that second hole box, and just for the moment, I'm going to bundle group those two together so that I can do an alignment. I want to align these with that center object. So I'm going to lasso select the two of those. I have two shapes there. I'm going to click the Align tool. Now I'm going to center them in that direction, down that direction, and we'll even center them up and down. Now I'm going to select on that whole box again where it's been bundled. I'm going to unbundle that. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to select all three of these, okay? Control-D to duplicate, and then holding the Shift key, I'm going to right cursor to my right. So now I have a complete second duplicate of this. Now here's where the trick comes in. On this one here, I'm going to delete this whole box. I'm going to select it and just hit the delete key. Or you could hit the garbage can symbol here, delete that. Over here, I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to then select the two of those and union group. Select the two of those, union group, and there we have it, split in half. And again, if I want to get these two right next to each other again, I'm not going to waste my time by trying to move them. I'm going to click W, put the work plane on that edge. I'm going to select this object, hit the letter D, and bingo bango, it's been aligned. W to put the work plane back. So there we go. That was this lesson. Hope you enjoyed this one. As always, like, follow, and repost. If you have comments, boy, you know where to drop those. If you have ideas for other TinkerCAD tips, tutorials, you know where to drop those. Send those to me in a DM. Hope you enjoyed this one. Happy tinkering, and I'll see you in the next one.